Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ben and Nate's Questions That We Ask People on the Internet. My name is Nate Fay. I'm a licensed massage therapist here in Connecticut, and I am also a seminar instructor for Dalton Myoskeletal.
And hey everybody, my name is Ben Stone, massage therapist for over 20 years. I like to do stuff like ask people questions on the internet, and that's why Nate and I came up with this show called Ben and Nate's Questions We Ask People on the Internet.
It all happened just a couple short years ago, right? We were in Florida together, and you're like, hey, man, I ask questions people on the internet, and you ask questions people on the internet. And then here we are 30-something episodes later.
Yeah, I think it was, hey, do you want to go do karate in the garage? And after that, it was all downhill from there.
You know, I'm liking this because usually Ben and I record our episodes on a Tuesday night after our long massage days, but here we are. It's a Saturday morning. I think we both have our sultry morning voices for y'all this morning. And what are you drinking over there, Ben? You got coffee and an energy drink. What does Ben drink on a Saturday morning at
Oh, I
9
just
a.m.?
I just grabbed what I had. I'm kind of out of stuff. I've got a little bit of whatever this stuff is called, bubbler. It's got a little
Bubbler.
caffeine in it, not a lot.
Beautiful. I've got my Death Wish coffee this morning to help us get through our day.
Nice.
And Ben, it's freezing cold here in Connecticut. What's happening in Nebraska?
Boy, it's been cold too. I think the whole country is suffering from, or at least not the whole country, but the northern half of the country, north of the Mason-Dixon.
Yes.
We're suffering from, what is that called? Cabin fever.
Yeah, it's happening, man. I had a number of clients come in this week, and it was the same story across the board. You know, everybody neck and shoulder, and you could just kind of see the look on everybody's faces, man. They had that sort of Jack Nicholson in The Shining look.
It's rough, man. I've been referring to it as stupid cold,
It
meaning
is
that
stupid cold.
I feel stupid for being outside because it's so cold.
It's a good way to look at it. That is a great way to look at it. So
Yeah.
Ben, you got anything good for me this week? Any good
Well,
jokes? Any good thoughts?
I always like to throw something out that starts us out with a laugh, and knowing that you are involved with music and you like music, I'm gonna throw it into the world of rap. So let me ask you this: what did the rapper say when his pen ran out of ink?
Ben, what did the rapper say when his pen ran out of ink?
Looks like I need to recharge my flow.
Yes.
Yeah, that's not the best one, but
Of
I was
course.
thinking rappers, and they like to do this thing called freestyle. And so today we don't necessarily have quite the question lined up, so we're kind of freestyling today is what we're calling it.
Yeah, and Ben and we got together. We didn't have a question posed this week, and I think sometimes we don't always have to have a question, but Ben and I were thinking about this video that was getting circulated around the interwebs, and the whole topic about this was regarding palpation of the psoas. And from there, Ben and I started to get into conversations about, different brands of body work, different modalities, the whole modality empire, if you will, and started to kind of talk about, what does this all mean? What's the purpose? And who's right or wrong? Because there's definitely a school of people out there, Ben. You said it best. And since you said it best, I'm going to let you say it.
Ooh, I'm not sure how I said it, but there are people out there who feel like it's their way or no way because they
Yeah.
have been involved in manual therapy for so long, and they are so learned that they know the right way and no other way is going to work. So if you don't agree with them, you're not right. Does that kind of sound like what I was saying?
Yeah, that's exactly what you were saying. And and even with that, there's this whole idea of, when somebody's been doing something for a long time, they put how many years they've had behind it. And we've kind of talked about this before, but just to reiterate, I've been doing this for 20 years. And my music teacher, Anthony Wellington, I got to give him credit for this. And I love Anthony's philosophy, and he says, "Who cares? How many hours have you been doing it? How many?" So just because you've been doing it for 20 years doesn't necessarily make you an expert. And we've seen people doing something for 5 years that have just put in, twice the time, twice the effort, are living and breathing it nonstop, and could definitely have a more profound expertise and understanding of something than somebody that's been doing something for 20, 30, 40 years.
Absolutely. I'm going to throw something on
Yeah.
top of that too. And maybe not even necessarily how much you've been putting into it, but what results are you getting? And that kind of can be a blow to my ego because I know I've been doing massage for, 20 plus years, but I know that I really haven't been putting in the amount of time that it needs for probably the past 10, 12 years. But and then I see people who, they just started massage school and, they're out of school for 2, 3 years and they're doing amazing work. And part of me is, I'm a little jealous. I'm like, man, how do you do that? Like I've been grinding away for 20 years and you just pop out of massage school and you're doing amazing work. And so
Right.
I think that's another thing is some people just have it. Some people are doing the right things to help themselves evolve
Yeah.
versus just you could be something for 40 years and not ever change and not ever get better and what good is that?
Right. And there's a different learning curve now too. I think part of it too, and I agree with you. I'm seeing I'm not going to say younger in age, but newer therapists coming out and just sort of certainly being better and coming out with knowledges and applications, far more than what we had, 10, 15, 20 years ago. But information is out there. People have access to information in a way that we didn't have it. So where you and I had to work very hard to find it and so quote unquote advanced technique, that stuff is readily out there now. And there's a much better way to interact with the massage community itself. However, with that being said, back to this whole hours versus year thing, how are you spending your day? Are you just going into the clinic? And I don't mean you personally, but this is the question I would pose to people listening, and seeing your clients and then going home and checking out for the day? Or do you start your day by, listening to a podcast like this or listening to something educational, whether it's a home study course or picking something out of a book and reading it for 30 minutes, regarding anatomy and physiology or whatever perks your interest in the manual therapy field, and then going to see your clients for the day, and then maybe ending your day with, blocking out 30 minutes of, some further study time, which could make all the difference in the world to that sort of hours versus, hey, I'm just punching the clock versus I'm making this part of my day.
Yeah, I have a few things that help guide me through my career, couple of quotes that kind of help steer me, and this is one of my favorites, and it's I forget who said this originally, but the larger the island of knowledge, the longer the shoreline of wonder.
Yeah.
So how much are you doing to evolve in what you do? We talk about this all the time. What are you doing to, increase your knowledge, increase your uh, how valuable you are to yourself and your clients? Because and I do it all. I just did it yesterday. I started playing around with a new. I don't know if you're familiar with this tool. It's called the Dolphin. It is a
I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's microcurrent, and I thought one of the people in my office has it, and I'm like, you know what? Let's try this out because I've got someone that is a good candidate that we could try this out on. I don't know how well it's going to work, but she's willing to give it a go, and so she's gonna come in for once a week or a couple times a week, and we're just gonna do some work with this and see what she notices. And I call it an experiment, and
Yeah.
she's willing to do it, and so we're just gonna figure it out together.
Yeah, I think that's great, man. I had back when I was studying classical music, when it came down to like practice time and everything, and I had this teacher tell me, well, if you only practice like in the morning, like say you start your day like practicing 2 hours, like from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., right? And then you go do your courses for the day, then you go home and you're checked out. and start all over. Well, that's 24 hours now that's gone by before you touch your instrument again. That's like a whole day has now passed, right? And versus this sort of, continued spreading things out during the day, right? So like you taking a device like the Dolphin and now you're going to spread this out, over the weeks and you're going to study it, how much more does that type of learning kind of get into us so it starts flowing out, much easier? And one of the ways that I started practicing when I was in college based off that knowledge was, I practice a little bit in the morning, couple hours in the afternoon, couple hours at night, just to sort of keep that whole, talk about implicit to explicit memory. So it just starts rolling out of you. And I love that idea of taking a new technique or a new tool like you're talking about and learning it that way, learning it, experimenting with it, how's this going to work? How's this going to evolve my practice? And what am I learning from this as I'm going?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that idea of not letting too much time go by in between when you're being purposeful about learning. Because we can go through our day and there are times where I'm just in go mode and I'm just doing the things. I'm going through my day. You know, I don't want to say robotic, but it's kind of what it is a little bit.
Yeah,
Um,
it can be for sure.
yeah.
And that whole analogy of how you're going to experiment with that tool, it's the same thing with techniques, right? Because when we go to a continuing education class, and learn a technique that we've never learned before, right? And I always tell people in my classes, man, just do that technique in everybody. See what type of results it yields. Start to learn maybe what the purpose is, what the outcome's going to be, so that down the road, hey, maybe this is not a technique that I have to use on this person, or maybe this is a technique that I absolutely have to use on this person. So then you can start to find more fundamental applications of how to use something like that, right?
Yeah, we talked about this a few weeks ago about how do you incorporate some of these things, some of these new things that you learn in a workshop into your current uh, into your current practice. And just what you said, you say, "Hey, do you mind if I keep you a couple minutes longer?" And we
Yeah.
work and I try this thing out on you. I guarantee 99% of people are going to say yes, unless they have somewhere to be, if they have to be back to work or something like that. But hardly anyone says, no, I don't want to stay on the massage table longer. No, that would just
Mm.
be horrible.
Right, right. Nobody ever says that.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. So with that being said, right, techniques, tools, applications of study, when did we get down to this whole my way or the highway of thinking when it comes to manual therapies? There's definitely a school of people out there that are sort of, I think, stuck in that rut a little bit.
Yeah, I think some of it is ego driven. Some of
Mhm.
it is probably financially driven because if you come up with the Nate Fay approach to getting rid of bunion pain, you know, you can sell your course to people and so it makes sense to try and protect what you've created, even though you're not the only one that's done it, but you've put your name on it and you've marketed it, that kind of thing.
Right.
So, and then we have some people that, you know, they they are presented with new knowledge because what every couple of years it seems like what we learn has changed. Eggs are good for us, eggs are bad for us, that sort of thing. Um, and so we have people like, well, you should be doing the most current research. And then some people are stuck in the past and they don't learn new research. And they're like, well, this is how I learned it in this school, and this is how I'm going to do it forever.
Right. Right.
And so there's all different kinds of approaches. And you know what? There's stuff I learned in school that I know has changed, but I still do because I've run across that it's been helpful for some people. And
Right. And
so who's
yeah.
to say that who's to say what's right and what's wrong?
Yeah, at this point I don't think anybody. And I mean, as long as your work is fundamentally done with a client, right? That team oriented atmosphere, do no harm, keep that clinical thinking cap, and we're always doing what's best for our client. And, my clients do like some education, not too much, not too little. I do, and I always ask permission, like, hey, do you want to kind of talk a little bit about some of the things that we're seeing and why I'm doing some of this stuff? And I like to have some of those talks about, the complicated definition of what pain truly is. It's not in isolation, right? We know all that stuff. But at the end of the day, I think our clients just want to get better, right? And I think while they care, I don't think they care as long as they can sit up off your table and feel like there's been this positive change coming off the table, right?
Yeah, how much of a part in helping someone is the education?
I think I think enough. I think enough. I think if we start overwhelming our clients with like too much, I had a new client yesterday, right? So I had a new client yesterday, and she came in and she said, she kind of had a checking all the box of issues, right? Neck pain, mid back pain, lower back pain, foot and ankle pain. And she told me that since she made the appointment with me, that she'd already gotten three, as she put it, deep tissue massages. And I didn't even dive into it. I didn't even ask her what the therapist was doing because she looked at me and she said, my neck has been so much better since I've been doing that. So, as a quote unquote educated therapist, I don't like the term deep tissue, right? And I don't even know what that means when another client is saying that to me. And her words were, I'm feeling better. So I said, great. And I left it alone. And I said, I'm glad that you and your other therapist are doing awesome work. And she said, since that's the case, what I'd really like to do with you is take a look at my lower back and start there and perhaps my foot and ankle. And I said, great. And I did my assessment and I started talking her through maybe some of the things that, I'm seeing and maybe the whys and some of the techniques that I'm going to do and the whys behind them. And she loved it. She got off the table and in her mind, she said, wow, she said, well, I guess it was really more of a muscle issue, right? Because people get caught up on what they think it is. They blame a muscle, they blame what they already sort of know by what their friends have told them. But that stuff aside, she got a deep tissue massage from somebody else and she felt better. End of story. To me, it was end of story at that point.
Absolutely. One of the
Yeah.
things I see around on the internets and that kind of thing is if you ask 10 different massage therapists the definition of deep tissue massage, you're going to get 20 different answers, 50 different answers, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then I take that a step further and I'm like, okay, if we the professionals don't even know how to describe deep tissue massage, how are our customers supposed to know? How is the public supposed to know what it means?
And I don't think they are. And fundamentally, I think that's my word for today. You and I and everybody else have built a practice based off your reputation, right? Based off of word of mouth, based off of whatever. Guilty as charged here for putting on my business cards, mat therapist, myoskeletal alignment therapist. And but I've done that as a marketing tool, right? Because maybe like, oh, this guy down the street's doing something different and maybe he can help my low back pain. But I also say at the end of the day, when did we stop being proud of just being not just, but when did we stop being proud of being a massage therapist, a licensed massage therapist, LMT? And I see so many of our colleagues guilty as charged, right? I'm a neurology specialist, I'm a this specialist, I'm a that specialist. And I'm like, and in my head, I'm like, no, you're just a massage therapist, you know? And it's an interesting thing, but I think we have this sort of syndrome in the massage therapy world, because we know, right? We know that education to get our license is probably low in most states compared to becoming a PT or chiropractor. So there's this sort of little dog syndrome. Like my French bulldog, he was a little dog and a very big body, and he had a very big personality, and he wanted to be a big dog. And we rely so much on continuing education, right? And listen, man, if you've been taking education courses for 10, 15, 20 years of your career, I guess when you add up all those hours, you probably have done thousands and thousands of hours at that point, right? And, while we should be proud of those titles, you know, again, I ask, what does it matter? What does it matter to our clients?
And why is it that massage therapy is different than some of the other manual therapies? We, like you said, little dog syndrome. We want to be in the mix, but our education and our licenses, keep us at a certain level. And it almost feels like we get looked down upon from, PT, um, chiropractors, that kind of thing. But people come to us for, you know, well, I want deep tissue massage. I want myofascial release massage. I want, some kind of specialized massage versus, hey, my back hurts. Can you help?
Right.
And I don't see very many chiropractors that, you don't go to a chiropractor and say, I want the Palmer technique, or
Right, or
I
the
want,
Gonstead technique, right? And
yes.
all these terminologies in the chiropractic world that probably, interestingly enough, probably mean less in the public side than terms like Swedish deep tissue, trigger point, so on and so forth. I mean, if I was advertising myself as a Gonstead chiropractor, I think less of the population would have an understanding of that than the terms deep tissue massage. So at the end of the day, hey, I'm a chiropractor. This is just the technique that I perform. And with that being said, too, Ben, here's the other thing that I don't really think we're really looked down upon as much as we used to be either. I think there is the more of this equal looked at, because the art of touch itself, the art of therapeutic touch has been shown to just have profound impacts on people,
Yeah, true.
you
I
know.
believe that also. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, still, right, there's still this whole thing of, well, I do medical massage. So I hear the term medical massage, and to parrot you, ask 10 different people what medical massage is, you're gonna get 10 different answers. And am I gonna walk into the room wearing a stethoscope and a white coat, because I do medical massage? Probably be weird.
Yeah, it's just, what does it all mean? And I believe a lot of it is probably our own fault, because the massage therapists are educating the public on all these different things that we do. And to borrow something that we talked about before, was think about if a plumber did that. Hey, come hire me to fix your pipes because I use the pipe wrench X2000. You
Right.
don't hire a plumber based on the tools that he uses. You hire him because you have clogged pipes.
At this point in your career, do you have people calling you, hey, I heard about you from my friend. I have neck pain. Can you help me out? Versus, hey, I'm looking, do you specialize in Paul St. John neuromuscular therapy? What's the ratio of phone calls there for you?
Yeah, the majority of stuff I get are issue related. Hey, I've got,
Yeah.
neck pain. So and so said you helped her with her back. Can you help me with my feet?
Yeah.
That kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah. People don't care, right? And once in a while, I do get a weird phone. It's not even weird. It's just interesting to me. And so I'm in Connecticut, and I actually did get a phone call about a month ago. And this guy was crystal clear. He called and left a message, and actually said, "I'm interested. Are you trained in Paul St. John neuromuscular therapy?" And I'm not. So I just simply called him back, and I wasn't going to build a case for myself. I'm not in the convincing business. I simply called him back, said, "Hey, I appreciate your call. I have not studied neuromuscular therapy, and thanks for calling. And I hope you find what you're looking for." And also, what he said in his same message to me was, "I've been calling around, and I have therapists tell me that they do it, but they don't really do it." So it's easy for people to say, right? And these are very specialized pieces of therapy, right? So a skilled therapist in a particular modality. So I will go into the modality thing for a minute. For example, I'm just going to say like Eric Dalton, right? So if you've studied myoskeletal alignment technique and I go to see you for myoskeletal alignment techniques, I'm going to expect that type of session versus somebody just saying they do it, but they really don't do it. So I'm never going to tell a potential client that or cupping therapy. Hey, do you do cupping? Nope, I don't do cupping. Thanks for calling. End of story. Do I have some cups in my office? And could I put them on you and move them around? Sure. But in the hands of somebody that's maybe put in a couple hundred hours to study cupping, I probably would look like a little bit of an amateur.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've got so many ideas running through my head
Mm,
about where we could go with this. Um, I had a conversation with somebody. So the difference between uh, what different therapists do, and so we kind of I brought this up a little bit earlier. The difference between, say, more focused Swedish work,
mm,
relaxation work, versus something that I'm going to call more therapeutic. What does therapeutic mean? I don't know, but I want to say that it's more focused on helping to relieve a problem, pain, discomfort, that kind of thing. Whereas Swedish work is not necessarily focused on relieving pain. It's more, I'm going to say, a lot of people cite stress. Like, I want to help relieve stress.
right.
Um, and it reminds me, I had a lady I saw 15 years ago. She moved away. She came back to where I'm at, and she wanted to see me again. And she saw me, and of course, I've evolved over the last 15 years in what I do. And she mentioned during the session how it felt different because she wasn't used to the hook or connecting in with the tissues versus a glide that you would
Right.
expect with Swedish massage. And she mentioned that, and I didn't really pick up on it, but I started to educate her why I was applying that type of approach. And she had just lost a loved one, and she had mentioned she just wanted to relax, like she was just and we did the work. She came back a couple weeks later, and she mentioned it again that she just wanted to relax, and I heard it, but it didn't really click with me.
Yeah.
And she didn't come back to see me, and my system automatically spits out something if someone hasn't been in a while, and it's it says, hey, how you been? I want to know if there's anything I can do, anything I did, or anything I can do better. I'm always wanting to learn and
Yeah.
improve myself. And so she took that opportunity to write me, which not very many people do, but she said I was looking for something more along the lines of Swedish massage, and that's not what I got. And it kind of hit me. I was like, she said that a couple of times, and I didn't really catch what she was getting after. Um,
Yeah.
when I said, "Hey, I've evolved into something different. That's not what I do anymore. I will give you here's some places to go try." And she goes, "It
Cool.
doesn't mean you're a bad therapist. I love the work you do. It's just not what I'm looking for right now."
Right. Right.
Um,
Yeah, and cool that you could have that conversation and that she wrote you back. And man, I love when clients do that. And again, learning curve, right? It's always a learning curve. And Swedish massage, it's been a while since anyone's asked me for one. It's probably been years, but same kind of thing. I've had clients that have been seeing me forever. And I had one woman come in, been seeing her forever. She knows what I do. And she goes, can I just get a Swedish massage today? And I looked at her and I said, it's going to be the worst massage you've ever gotten because I just can't do it. I just can't do it. Swedish massage is therapeutic, right? There's some therapy there. Hey, I've lost a loved one. I'm stressed. Maybe that stress is causing me pain. And, probably we're all guilty of this too, right? To diminish Swedish massage, right? Fluff and buff is a term that I've heard, over the years to kind of diminish that type of therapy. And with everything that we've learned, so we can take this education of pain science that's been, really coming out over the past 5 to 10 years now, and take that into a thing that Swedish massage could be very therapeutic for stress, anxiety. Somebody just needs to check out for an hour, that deep relaxation, and have profound effects on the body, right? I just can't do it. And I guess you can't either, which is fine.
I found out I can't.
Yeah. Heck yeah, man. And man, God bless. I have so much more respect for those therapists that do. I got um one time in my life, one time. It's pretty, and that's a pretty piss poor number. I was up in Boston for my 40th birthday about 8 years ago, and I got a Swedish massage that absolutely knocked my socks off. I mean, I don't think I knew Swedish massage until this person gave me a Swedish massage, and I was like, that was honestly more pain relieving than anything else that I've ever gotten.
When you're floating outside your body, looking down at yourself, and
Yeah.
yeah, one of the biggest differences I feel like that's between Swedish massage and I'm going to call more therapeutic massage is the assessment part. I think the
Mm,
assessment part in Swedish massage is more just verbal stuff. What's your level of health and wellness? How are you feeling today? That kind of thing. Versus, more therapeutic stuff where you're going to do orthopedic assessments, test and retest, that kind of thing. And I made this comparison because I like things to be black and white. I like to, perform an assessment. I see this versus that. Okay, I know what to do based on this assessment. I do the thing, we recheck it, that sort of thing. Um, so I make this comparison to it would be so much easier if I was working on a car because cars are, to me, black and white. If something's not working, you put in the diagnostic tool, you find out, oh, my
mm,
O2 sensor's broken or my water pump's broken. You change that out, it's fixed. There's no,
right.
but in body work, I mean, you can do your assessments and that will give you an idea, but also you have mental and emotional issues. So think about if you're, you know where I'm going with this, don't you? Think about this if your mechanic came to you and said, "Well, your car's functioning right, but it's just got a case of the Mondays." And
Yeah.
so we're it's just a little depressed and so we're going to have to feed it some, special gas and we're going to, do some stuff. And that's what it's kind of like working on a body is we not only have the mechanical stuff, but we have this biological, emotional, physical, spiritual, all these things that we have to take into consideration that affects our well-being.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. We're plants with emotions. That's one of my favorite little internet memes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's we're a big piece of the puzzle. We're a great piece of the puzzle, for people, and people come to see us for a reason. And we've built our practices, right? Everybody listening, you've built your practice based off of probably several components. So then you get this school of people, right, that say we can only do this. I saw a comment on your Facebook page, Ben, yesterday, and he said you can only palpate skin. Fine. Okay. I'm going to leave that alone for a minute. Fine. So, has this person built their whole practice out of just doing whatever, 2 grams of pressure techniques, holding, right? Very basic, not basic, but a different form of myofascial release because there's many definitions underneath that as well. And are people walking away and getting better? I don't know. We'd have to ask that person. Versus if somebody came, say you took a class, Ben, and you left there and you said, well, I guess we can only touch skin and we can only do this. And yes, we do only touch skin at the end of the day. I mean, that's where our hands are landing, sure. And all of a sudden you just changed everything you did and you changed how you practice. Do you think people would stick around?
I think they would stick around if they were getting a benefit. And there's more to just touching skin to benefit them. And it's like we talked about before. It's the education. I think the education piece is
Yeah.
helpful in how they perceive what the treatment's going to do for them. I mean, there's your demeanor, there's how you dress, there's your level of experience, there's how you present that experience. There's so many different levels that influence therapeutic outcomes,
Right.
which I
Right.
always like to refer back to that podcast from Till and Whitney, episode 23. Do do experiences no, how's it go? Basically, it's how can we influence therapeutic outcome through different ways that don't involve touch.
I think if I had a day of I think if I had a day of just doing that type of modality with clients that have seen me, whether they got better or not, I think they would all think I've lost my mind. And they're not going to get better because they think that I lost my mind that day, because there's that whole belief system as well. There's that whole believing in what you do. People
Yeah,
believe in us, right? People believe in, what Ben Stone's going to do on them that particular day.
yeah, and Joe the chiropractor who sent his person over to see Nate, and he's already set the stage. Hey, I want you to go see Nate because he can do some things and he's got a little more time than I have. He can do some things that are going to be very helpful to you. And
Yeah.
he's already setting the stage for you to say, hey, Nate is a professional. He's going to help you. So even before they've walked in your office, they have already started to believe that they're going to get better before you even touch them.
Yeah. I've had people come in and say, man, I went to my chiropractor today and he didn't adjust me. He only did this clicker tool on me, or he only put this laser on me. And in the chiropractor's mind, he or she did something that was profound, and they had a clinical reasoning for doing that. And the person's left there going, hey, he didn't, he didn't do that technique on my thoracic spine that they do every single time. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to go back there now. And I've heard that story, and I'm using the chiropractor as an analogy just because that's a story that I've heard, that when you flip the treatment on somebody that they're used to, and the theme was not give them the education is why. Hey, I'm going to do this today and this is why. And that's the difference between somebody leaving there satisfied or somebody leaving there completely dissatisfied by what you did that day.
Yeah, think about if you were to go into a chiropractor's office and you were blindfolded and you were only able to, I guess, verbally tell them what's wrong. And they could do all the assessments and everything, but they didn't speak to you about what they were going to do. They did their laser treatment. You don't know it's a laser. You just feel something on your arm or your back. Like how effective would that be versus you actually being able to see and hear why that's happening?
Right. Right.
I had
Sometimes.
somebody come in this week, and one of the things I like to ask every once in a while is, what did we do in the past that you felt was helpful?
Yeah.
And she goes, you used that massage gun on me, and that was really helpful. I think you should do that again. And I hardly ever use that thing, and I'm like, we
Right.
did? I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I was like, all
Yeah.
right, we'll do that again.
That's one of my favorite questions to ask when people come in for the first time too. And I know that they've had massage, chiropractic, PT, and I always say, what did you like? What did you love about that? And they'll say, man, I loved when they pulled my leg a little bit. So I make sure I give that little, leg pull. Hey, what did you hate? Oh man, I hated it when they went near my neck and started to wind me up a little bit. And I say, okay, we don't have to do that. And if I start to work on your neck and it's even giving you a taste of, what you experienced in a negative fashion before, just let me know and we won't do it. So I'm not going to push my beliefs on anybody, right? And I,
Yeah,
th- I think I think that's what it comes down to on the internet, man. There's a lot of belief pushers, and we do this, we don't do that, we affect this, we don't affect that, and it's just I don't know. It's just a lot of noise. It feels like a lot of noise in my head when I'm on social media sometime.
well, I think we just uncovered a big secret to massage therapists or manual therapists in general is I mean, they're going to tell you what's going to be helpful. You got to listen. And if
You
you
got to
take the time
listen.
to listen, I mean, the answers are all right there versus, you get someone that comes into your office and within the first 30 seconds, you're telling them to get on the table. Like, uh, what? You're missing a lot of opportunity there. So,
I've had it.
uh,
Yeah.
for all of you listening out there, massage therapists, I talk about this on my YouTube channel every once in a while, but take the time to listen.
I have 3 chapters written in my book that I've been trying to write for 3 years now
Yes.
called The Art of Listening. And every time we have these conversations, man, I think it's just going to be one page. You just got to listen.
The end.
Put
Book
some
by
nice
Nate
packaging
Fay.
on it, sell
Yeah,
it for $10 on Amazon, and be done with it.
I love it.
Hey Ben, listen, man, I got to go to yoga.
Right on.
And this was a fun Saturday morning conversation with you. So, what did you take away today, buddy?
Man, we went all different kinds of places. It's my big takeaway is just I love having the opportunity to talk about these things with someone else that does this. And so my takeaway is I would encourage any massage therapist to do this with other massage therapists. Take the time. I used to get together with massage therapists once a month and there was no agenda. We would just talk about whatever came up. And I think learning happens in this type of environment where you have no agenda. You just talk about stuff, whatever comes up. I mean, given me things to think about. One of the things is just checking in with people. What was it you asked? There was something you asked people all the time. I'll remember it later. But yeah, I just liked having this no agenda. How about you, Nate? What's kind of something that stood out for you?
Well, Ben, I'm gonna have to say the same thing, man. It's just fun to get together and have these conversations, and it gets my brain ticking quite a bit. So, just because this has been an Eight's questions that we ask people on the internet, this show is going to continue to probably evolve in different ways that we don't even know. And sometimes it's just cool to have a good conversation.
That's right. If we're not evolving as massage therapists, if we're not evolving as a podcast, then what good are we? Because we gotta walk the walk, right? We gotta do what we say we gotta do.
That's right. Hey,
So
Ben, how can people listen to us?
yeah, we've got ourselves up on Spotify. We've got ourselves up on Apple Podcasts. We are on YouTube. And where else are we on? Oh, we're on Facebook. Imagine that. Facebook, you can come interact with us on a little page called Ben and Nate's Questions We Ask Massage Therapists on the internet. So come check us out. Drop us a line. Let us know you're listening. Let us know if you have any questions you would like us to talk about in the future. Um, and Nate,
Yeah.
why don't you tell us what to expect in the future?
What to expect in the future? I don't know. I'm looking forward. I'm working towards our goals of episode 50, which we're slowly crawling to. And we've got a lot of great continuing education classes coming down the pipe here. And we're going to do a big Oklahoma City celebration and tribute to Eric Dalton this summer in July. And then my good friend and colleague Scott Doss and I are going to carry on the torch and the flag and go to Costa Rica in November for the 26th annual Pain Relief in Paradise retreat. So that's what an honor.
That is, wow. We got a lot of cool stuff to look forward to in the future.
We sure do, Ben. Hey, listen, buddy, I'm going to go get in my best tree pose now. So I will see you next week.
Thanks everyone for listening. Come find us on Ben and Nate's Questions We Ask People on the internet, and we'll see you in the future.
Cheers.